December 12, 1987. One uprising superstar, two giants, and a game that ended an era. A 24-year-old Michael Jordan walked into Chicago Stadium to face Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson, two 7-footers built to dominate the NBA. What happened next changed basketball history forever. This is the night Jordan took on the Twin Towers and left them in ruins. By the end of 1987, Michael Jordan wasn't just a rising star. Averaging nearly 37 points per game while snagging rebounds, threading assists, and locking down the league's best scorers, he was already dominating. A one-man natural disaster. Explosive, relentless, unstoppable. But across from him, two monoliths, two mountains. Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, a 7-foot post-up powerhouse, and Ralph Sampson, the 7'4" who could do literally anything. A player decades ahead of his time, like Wemby, before Wemby. Just a year earlier, they had marched the Rockets to the NBA Finals. They dominated the paint and dismantled everything in their path. A throwback to the old rules: size wins, and guards don't carry teams. And facing them, a Chicago Bulls squad still years away from championship polish. No rings, no dynasty, just a young, hungry core, and one generational talent about to break the rules. On paper, it wasn't fair. A backcourt against a skyline. But history has never been written on paper. It's written on nights like this. And for one of those towering Rockets, December 12th would be his last night in a Houston jersey. For decades, NBA dynasties were built on one universal truth. If you wanted to win it all, you needed a generational big man. From George Mikan's fundamentals, to Wilt's dominance, to Russell's rings, to Kareem's skyhook, the blueprint for greatness was etched in the paint. The bigger your man in the middle, the better your shot at glory. The Houston Rockets understood this better than anyone, so they doubled down, literally. They didn't just get one generational big man, they got two. Hakeem Olajuwon, a 7-footer with balletic footwork, elite timing, and defensive instincts that bordered on clairvoyant. And Ralph Sampson, a 7'4" unicorn before the term existed. Rookie of the Year, Final Four MVP, and ball-handling skills in a skyscraper's frame. Together, they were the Twin Towers, the ultimate cheat code in an era still ruled by height, strength, and paint supremacy. And for a while, it worked. Just one season before this game, they took the Rockets all the way to the NBA Finals. The league believed they were the future, the next dynasty, the unstoppable force. But they hadn't faced the immovable object yet. All of that, the blueprint, the belief, the dominance, came crashing into one man, a 24-year-old Michael Jordan, who wasn't supposed to challenge giants, who wasn't supposed to dunk on centers, who wasn't supposed to redefine how the league operated. And yet, he did. What fueled him wasn't just ambition, it was personal. Because on draft night, 1984, the Houston Rockets had the number 1 pick in a loaded class. And when it was their turn to call a name, they didn't say Michael Jordan. They said Hakeem Olajuwon. A phenomenal choice, no doubt, a Hall of Famer, a 2-time champ, an all-time great. But he wasn't, Michael Jordan. And that decision, Jordan never forgot. So on this night in 1987, when he faced the Twin Towers again, this time on his home floor, it was a reckoning. December 12th, 1987, the stage was Chicago Stadium. The Bulls had broken 50 wins for the first time in the Jordan era, finally moving past the fun-to-watch but not a threat label. But that night, they would have to prove it against one of the best teams in the Western Conference. However, Hakeem was the first to break the deadlock. His footwork was sublime. His spins were deadly. So much so that artist Gilmore soon realized he had no chance of stopping him that night. But Jordan responded quickly. He always did. After receiving the ball in the left corner, MJ decided to go to his right with one dribble before pulling up and knocking down the midi, taking advantage of Gilmore's screen. Right after that, Michael attacked again, this time from the right wing. While guarded by Purvis Short, Jordan played give and go with Gilmore before stopping dead in his tracks at mid-range to score his second pull-up jumper of the night. And although Hakeem was doing the same on the other side of the court, taking advantage of his superiority in the paint and scoring points with his fundamental game, Michael was taking advantage of his privileged athleticism. Look at the ease with which Jordan flies through the Chicago skies before dunking the ball on 7'4" Ralph Sampson's head. Simply unreal. A play straight out of NBA Jam more than real life. Not only that, but on defense, Michael came to Gilmore's aid. On a few occasions, MJ was even able to swat his shot before it left his hand. In fact, Michael's defensive pressure in that game was absolutely dominant. I can prove it to you very easily, because moments later, Jordan did the same thing again, this time on Purvis Short's jumper, his second block of the night, in the first quarter. Even with Ralph Sampson showing his quality, taking on the duties of a guard, Michael was too much for them. Look at how unstoppable he was in those semi-transition situations. If you were too close, he was gonna blow by you. If you're too far away, he was gonna knock down the jumper in your face. You had to resign yourself to the fact that the bucket was gonna go in either way. Interestingly, we also saw an iconic MJ play, something he would repeat a decade later in the finals against the Utah Jazz and Karl Malone. Look at how when Hakeem receives the ball at the post, Jordan comes from his blind spot to deflect the ball. I repeat, he was everywhere that night on the defensive end. In addition to scoring, Jordan was also using his gravity to find open looks for his teammates. Here, he makes the defense collapse and then folds the ball to John Paxson for the long two. However, despite Michael's efforts, the Bulls were far from deciding the game at halftime. Yeah, they were up by 5 points, but the Rockets' interior superiority over the Bulls caused continuous imbalances on both sides of the court. To keep up with them, Michael not only had to score like a guard, he also had to defend like a big man. But luckily for Chicago, Jordan was playing what was probably the best defensive game of his short career. I mean, want another example? In fact, I'll give you the best example possible. On this play at the start of the third quarter, Michael Jordan strips the ball from Rodney McRae, again going from the weak side to his dribble. But not only that, Jordan comes out in transition like a rocket toward the Rockets' hoop. And when he gets to the paint, he challenges Hakeem to an aerial duel. The problem is that Michael was so fast that Olajuwon didn't even have a chance to do anything. Jordan dunked the ball with hunger, with anger, and a desire for revenge. He was sending a message to the Houston management. You should have picked me. Or this other play, in which MJ comes back to help on defense when Hakeem has the ball in the post, and once again demonstrates his incredible timing to swat his shot. Normally, it was Hakeem who was flying through the air blocking everything, but tonight, Michael was dominating him. Of course, Jordan was also dominating offensively. Again in transition, MJ receives a pass from Paxson to finish with a layup between two defenders. In addition to the basket, he gets the and one. In half court, Jordan was also wreaking havoc. Always alert to the offensive glass, he was getting extra balls all the time. And not only that, he also had the poise and touch to shoot a floater over 7'4" Ralph Sampson. Meanwhile, he was locking down whoever was in front of him. This time it was the legend, World B. Free, who was about to run out of options due to Jordan's defense and is close to committing a turnover. Moments later, Michael reaches the ball on World B. Free's shot, getting his fourth block of the night. It had come to a point where Michael was in his element, or as the young people would say, he was in his bag. Using Corzine's pick, Jordan danced left and right with the ball until his defender couldn't keep up. Then he connected yet another mid-range jumper. And more importantly, Mike was also helping his teammates. On this play, after drawing multiple defenders, Jordan finds Pippen for the easy two. However, from this point on, the game became a total takeover. Jordan began using screens, this time from Horace Grant, to get the space he needed to shoot. Of course, on that night, he couldn't miss. Moments later, Jordan once again demonstrated his great off-the-ball skills to get wide open at 12 feet. From there, on catch and shoot, he drills the shot from the low block. But the show had just begun. Jordan was fast, too fast for World B. Free, and he used that to his advantage. On this play, he receives the ball, then goes baseline, then banks the layup before the defensive help is able to arrive. Moments later, he pickpockets the ball from World B. Free in a transition play that was practically guaranteed points or free throws for the Rockets. His defensive ambition remained the same. He was going to kill, and with just over 2 minutes left on the clock, he knew his time had come. Clutch time. First, Jordan jab steps the out of Rodney McRae, creating a path to the hoop for himself. Right after that, he takes advantage of Corzine's screen again to receive the ball. Then, in ISO, he goes all in against McRae, eventually knocking down the midi in his face. And although Hakeem manages to respond by going to the free throw line, Michael soon returns the basket with a great cut. in which, by the way, in addition to scoring 2 points, he's able to score them over Hakeem Olajuwon, who watches helplessly as he can do absolutely nothing to reach Michael's layup. And although Olajuwon is able to return the favor once again in a game that looked like a 1v1, this time with a jumper from the baseline, the Bulls still have the lead on the scoreboard. And that forces the Rockets to foul the player with the ball. Of course, Doug Collins, cleverly, had given the ball to Michael Jordan. Not only does he knock down 2 of 2, but on the next play he knocks down another 2 for 4 out of 4. As always, in clutch time, he couldn't miss. And that was too much for Houston. MJ, he had done it. He had defeated the team that passed him over in the draft. He had emerged victorious in his duel with the Twin Towers. For Michael Jordan, this night was more than numbers. Yes, he got 44 points, 9 assists, 5 steals and 5 blocks in one of the best defensive nights of his career. But above all, that night was revenge. He proved that he wasn't just a scorer, but a defender, a playmaker, a closer when the fourth quarter came. Within months, he'd win his first MVP and his first Defensive Player of the Year award. By the way, the only guard ever to do so in the same season. But for Houston, it was the end of an era. That night was Ralph Sampson's final game as a Rocket. Within 24 hours, he was traded to Golden State. The Twin Towers were gone. And although Olajuwon would one day lift 2 titles, of course, during Jordan's first retirement, the dream of twin dominance ended in Chicago, ended by Michael. That night was a statement. Michael Jordan didn't just outplay 2 giants. He shattered the blueprint of the league. In 48 minutes, he told the world this game was no longer about height. It was about heart, will, and the refusal to be second best. For Bulls fans, it was a prophecy. For Rockets fans, a reckoning. And for Jordan, it was personal. The team that passed on him watched helplessly as he soared, defended, and destroyed. Some nights in sports are just wins. Others are warnings. This one, it was a warning to the league. You didn't pick me. Now you're going to feel me. That night, Michael Jordan became a legend. So, here's the question. Was this the night Jordan truly announced himself as a dominant, all-around player? Or do you think his legacy was cemented later against the Pistons, the Knicks, or the Finals? Drop your take below. And if you lived through the 80s, where were you the night Jordan destroyed the Twin Towers? We read every comment. If you live for legendary breakdowns, epic rivalries, and the moments that made basketball history, subscribe to First 5 Hoops and join a community of real basketball fans. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.